In 1976, two mathematicians published a 9-page paper that would change the world forever. At the time, almost no one noticed, but hidden in their equations was the solution to a problem worth trillions of dollars, a secret that would eventually transform how we communicate, do business, and live our daily lives. Stanford University, 1976. The United States was celebrating its bicentennial. Personal computers barely existed. The internet was just an experimental network connecting a few dozen research labs. And cryptography, the science of codes and ciphers, was primarily used by governments and militaries to protect their secrets. In this environment, two young academics were quietly working on a mathematical puzzle that had stumped experts for centuries. How could two people who had never met securely share information while others were listening? The solution would spark a revolution that continues to shape our digital world today. Whitfield Diffie was an eccentric, long-haired mathematician obsessed with cryptography at a time when the field was shrouded in government secrecy. Martin Hellman was a Stanford professor who specialized in information theory. Together, they formed an unlikely partnership that would challenge the established rules of encryption. What made their collaboration remarkable was their outsider status. Until the 1970s, cryptography research was dominated by government agencies like the National Security Agency, NSA, which classified most advances as state secrets. Academic research on encryption was practically non-existent. But Diffie and Hellman were determined to democratize encryption. They believed secure communication shouldn't be monopolized by governments, but should be available to everyone. This philosophy put them on a collision course with powerful intelligence agencies, but they persisted, driven by a vision of a world where privacy could be mathematically guaranteed. To understand the significance of their breakthrough, we need to recognize the fundamental problem they solved. For thousands of years, encryption had a fatal flaw: the key exchange problem. If you wanted to send an encrypted message to someone, you both needed to agree on a secret key beforehand. This meant you had to meet in person or use a trusted courier, completely impractical for modern communication. Imagine wanting to shop online, but first having to physically mail a secret code to every website you plan to visit, or needing to visit your bank in person before you could access your account online. Digital commerce would be impossible. Intelligence agencies had developed their own classified solutions, but for the rest of the world, this problem remained unsolvable. Many experts believed it was mathematically impossible to exchange secure keys over an insecure channel. Diffie and Hellman were about to prove them wrong. The solution Diffie and Hellman proposed was revolutionary. Instead of a single secret key, they introduced the concept of public key cryptography, a system using two mathematically connected keys, one public, one private. Their insight relied on the mathematical concept of one-way functions, operations that are easy to perform but extremely difficult to reverse. Specifically, they used modular exponentiation, where calculating forward is simple but reversing the process, known as the discrete logarithm problem, is computationally infeasible. This asymmetry allowed two people who had never met to establish a shared secret over an open channel. Even if someone intercepted all their communications, the eavesdropper couldn't determine the secret key. In April 1976, they published their findings in a paper titled New Directions in Cryptography in the IEEE Transactions on Information Theory. The 9-page document contained no computer code, just mathematical concepts and equations. But those equations would eventually secure trillions of dollars in transactions and communications. When Diffie and Hellman published their paper, it didn't make headlines. The concepts were so new that few people grasped their implications. But within the small world of cryptography researchers, it caused an earthquake. The NSA, which had been exploring similar concepts classified as top secret, was alarmed. Government cryptographers had assumed these ideas were known only to them. Now, these outsiders had independently discovered and published the concepts for anyone to use. There were attempts to suppress the research. The NSA suggested that publication might violate weapon export laws. Government representatives warned Hellman that his work might be illegal. But the mathematical genie was already out of the bottle. Other researchers quickly built upon the framework that Diffie and Hellman had established. Just a year later, in 1977, three researchers at MIT, Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir, and Leonard Adleman, developed a practical implementation of public key cryptography based on Diffie and Hellman's theoretical framework. Their algorithm, called RSA using their initials, relied on the difficulty of factoring large prime numbers, another one-way function. While multiplying two large primes together is straightforward, working backward to determine the original primes is extraordinarily difficult. RSA gave the theoretical concept a practical form that could be implemented in real systems. The algorithm was published in Scientific American, further spreading these once classified ideas to the public. At the time, the US government still considered strong encryption a munition, restricting its export much like weapons. As a form of protest, cryptography enthusiasts printed the RSA algorithm on t-shirts. The code was now literally being worn by citizens, a powerful symbol of how mathematics couldn't be contained by government restrictions. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, a conflict known as the Crypto Wars unfolded between government agencies trying to control encryption and the growing community of researchers, tech companies, and privacy advocates fighting for wide access to strong cryptography. The US government proposed the Clipper chip, which would give law enforcement a backdoor into encrypted communications. They argued that encryption would help criminals and terrorists hide from surveillance. Cryptographers countered that weakening encryption for everyone would create catastrophic security vulnerabilities. Mathematics doesn't distinguish between authorized and unauthorized users. A backdoor for law enforcement would inevitably become a backdoor for hackers as well. By the late 1990s, the advocates for strong encryption had largely won. Export restrictions were relaxed, and strong cryptography became widely available in commercial products. As the internet expanded beyond research labs to become a commercial platform in the 1990s, the need for security became paramount. How could users safely transmit credit card numbers to online merchants? How could sensitive information travel across an inherently open network? The solution came directly from the mathematics pioneered by Diffie and Hellman. In 1994, Netscape developed the Secure Sockets Layer SSL protocol, which used public key cryptography to create encrypted connections between web browsers and servers. This innovation made e-commerce possible. Without it, you couldn't safely enter your credit card on a website, access your bank account online, or send confidential information through the internet. The entire digital economy rested on this mathematical foundation. Today, public key cryptography secures virtually everything in our digital lives. Every time you see a padlock icon in your browser, you're using descendants of the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Every time you make an online purchase, check your bank balance, or send a secure message, you're relying on their mathematics. The economic impact is staggering. Global e-commerce sales exceed $5 trillion annually. Banking transactions worth hundreds of trillions of dollars flow securely through networks protected by public key cryptography. Secure corporate communications, government systems, and critical infrastructure all depend on these encryption methods. Beyond commerce, these mathematical techniques protect human rights activists, journalists, and dissidents from surveillance. They secure medical records, personal communications, and sensitive data of all kinds. The societal value extends far beyond what can be measured in dollars. From online banking to secure messaging apps, from digital signatures to website encryption. All trace their lineage back to that 9-page paper published in 1976. A paper that transformed mathematics into a trillion-dollar foundation for our digital world. In 2008, a mysterious figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto published a paper describing Bitcoin, the world's first cryptocurrency. At its core, Bitcoin relies on public key cryptography, the same mathematics developed by Diffie and Hellman decades earlier. Every Bitcoin wallet consists of a public key, where others can send funds, and a private key, which only the owner knows. Transactions are signed using private keys, creating digital signatures that can be verified using the corresponding public keys. This cryptographic foundation makes the entire system possible. The blockchain technology underlying cryptocurrencies also depends heavily on cryptographic hash functions, another type of one-way function. These mathematical techniques create the security and verifiability that allow blockchain systems to function without central authorities. Today, the cryptocurrency market has reached a valuation of over $1 trillion at its peak. More importantly, blockchain technology is expanding beyond digital currencies to applications in supply chain management, digital identity, and countless other fields. None of this would be possible without the public key cryptography first described by Diffie and Hellman. The security of today's encryption rests on the difficulty of certain mathematical problems, like factoring large numbers or computing discrete logarithms. But a new threat has emerged: quantum computers. Theoretical quantum computers could potentially solve these problems efficiently, breaking many of our current encryption systems. In 1994, mathematician Peter Shor developed an algorithm that, if run on a sufficiently powerful quantum computer, could break RSA encryption. This has sparked a new race to develop post-quantum cryptography, encryption methods that would remain secure even against quantum computers. Once again, mathematicians are searching for new one-way functions that are resistant to quantum attacks, continuing the legacy that Diffie and Hellman began. From a historical perspective, the 1976 Diffie-Hellman paper stands as one of the most consequential mathematical works ever published. It democratized what was once a government secret, creating the foundation for our digital economy and transforming how we communicate. What's remarkable is how pure mathematics, abstract concepts explored for their theoretical interest, created such extraordinary real-world impact. A 9-page paper of equations and theory launched industries, enabled global commerce, and shaped modern society. As we look to the challenges ahead, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and technologies yet to be invented, we're reminded that sometimes the most transformative innovations begin with a simple question asked by curious minds, and that mathematics, once discovered, becomes a tool that can change the world. Hit subscribe to catch our next video on how seemingly abstract discoveries transformed our world. Comment below with what mathematical breakthrough you think has had the biggest impact on society.